space in the computer. And slideshow. Can you see this? Can you see the presentation? Okay. So this is not hopefully going to be too long. It's just an introduction to Dharma stars. And, you know, you guys probably all have a sense of it anyway, but this is, as I say, something for future stakeholders, and it will be grown upon. But there's something beautiful about formally speaking about it today. And we kind of launched the website in about August last year, but now it's really beautiful to finally be showing something kind of professional. And I actually have an aspiration that some quite interesting people will see this presentation in the coming months. So first, we're going to just orientate as to what is Dharma stars. And D stars is its like street name. And it's called Dharma stars for several reasons. We see that there's a resurgence of mystery schools, these ancient traditions of mystical, esoteric schools across sections of high knowledge. And there's a lot of talk in these days, you know, lots of people talking about priestesses and goddesses, but a lack of actual application to lineage and learnings. And those of us who are working within the framework at the moment are working with things like Sekhem, which has got a connection to ancient Egypt, and some people say to Lemuria. And a lot of the work that we do roughly falls under concepts such as Dakini wisdom or temple arts. And a lot of people think of the temple arts as, oh, sexy priestesses, but it's actually being a multifaceted, inverted commas, priest or priestess, somebody who's in service to their community, to the divine, and different people have different skills and talents. So it could be medicine, it could be dance, it could be art, it could be sacred sexuality, it could be plants, it could be pranayama. And this is the whole thing, is bringing something reputable back and bringing it through from many lineages. So what we've been seeing quite a lot of is this thing, a lot of people go off to Egypt and come back a goddess, you know, and start giving themselves very high names that are more ego than truth. And what's missing for many of these temple arts and priestess lineages is an actual congregation and an actual community. And for us, it felt really important to put the word Dharma in front of what the temple arts mystery school is about, because for us it has to have a working application, firstly to high teachings and high spiritual knowledge that's real, not just channeled by the ego, but you know, that actually really is reputable. And also Dharma is in finding one's highest path, and hopefully for the highest and greatest good for all beings. So in order to create like a block and an attractor for the right people and the right souls, putting Dharma in front of everything else was super important, so that people do not show up thinking we're yet again going to be stroking their egos just to make them look sexy, okay? And that this is about finding our highest pathway, and it comes before anything else that we offer. So that is the Dharma in Dharma stars. And then we love that the acronym STARS is Sekhem Temple Arts Rejuvenation School. So the rejuvenation schools are connected to ancient Lemurian and Atlantean civilizations. And there is this Aquarian age or golden age, knowing that many of us have, that we're stepping into these new fusion knowledges and these new kind of biopranic technologies and multidimensional technologies to accelerate healing in many planes. And so the rejuvenation school is bringing in the concept of a rehabilitation energy that these schools have. It's not just a function of, yes, we dance around taking plants. There's a high level rewiring and rebooting for the soul, for the self, for the ego, for children, and things like that. And the acronym of STARS also is that it's about connecting to the healthy, non-delusional state of our star consciousness that many tribes speak of. And also is a bit of a spin on what is famous, what is cool. Look at the stars, like a stardom. And it's also quite a thing that kids like, stars. And so we have a whole pro-social component about helping magical children find their Dharma path and help them to work with any of the heaviness that they're having to face in this Kali Yuga time. So that in short is D stars. And yet, as I say, our street name is D stars. So there you go. So I mentioned this, we're coming into this acceleration of times. COVID brought amazing gifts, and a lot of us are knowing that we're purging a lot to come into a higher frequency. And we are working very closely with this concept of stepping into the Aquarian age or the Golden Age, and this concept of Shambhala warriors, these high spiritual warriors who are here to create a timeline shift, to work through epigenetic suffering, the legacies of the ancestors, a lot of karmas, and work with things like mindfulness, pranayama, yoga, things that were given by highly realized beings in more ancient times, where people were not in the Kali Yuga, where they were not in the age of mass degeneration. And the idea is to bring back a lot of those teachings in these fusion modalities to create like a fleet of Shambhala warriors, people who know they came to help to set up the Golden Age. And I will speak a little bit on the Golden Age in a minute. So yes, it's going to be mystery school. Yes, it is mystery school, but the idea is it's meaningful, okay? And as such, it's not just about, oh, I'm very clever and I learned this magic, esoteric, mystical knowledge. It's about the application of that to actually assist the practical components of the Golden Age to be enacted. So again, as I say, there are lots of these hashtag priestesses, and I'm like, where's the congregation? It just seems to be you dancing with some other priestesses. That's not doing anything. And I'm not going to say that that's redundant, but because there are many energetics that take place on the planet, but I feel that the most highly realized and virtuous people care about those less fortunate and wish to enact things in the third dimension as well, where they can. Because after all, if we're going to create a quantum shift, we have to anchor it into the 3D. And it's all very well talking about the stuff that we do in the quantum field, but can we be nice to our neighbor? Can we help refugees? Can we help children who are suffering? All of these things. So this is going to be very important as the cultivated practical component of what Dharma Stars harnesses and brings through. So it's also very much linked to the Dakini way of being. And Dakinis are seen as sky dancers in Tibetan Buddhism. And they are multidimensional beings, usually in female form. And they can be semi-wrathful. They also can have a strong medicine. And they work actually with sacred coding and consciousness and sacred language, which can be seen as the light languages that some of us bring through. And they hold different things. And that it is seen that a woman can be a Dakini if she's also working with high knowledge and harnessing the multidimensional to help these times to shift. It's interesting because we've got a picture here. I got guided to put this in, Guru Rinpoche, Padma, who was a lotus-born master who brought through very high tantric teachings with his consorts, with one in particular, Geshe Shogjo. And it was his day yesterday. He was a very magical Buddhic being who is still seen as a marker of multidimensional quantum consciousness by the Tibetans and Bhutanese today. And actually, there are now a series of films that have been made in the last few years by Shambhala Films about Padma and about the Dakini codes, which really talk about how he invented the quantum consciousness and how quantum scientists are only just finding the stuff that he has instilled into Tibetan Buddhism that is how some of us work, okay? And it was his day yesterday. It was Guru Rinpoche day yesterday. So, and I was finalizing this presentation yesterday. So it's amazing. So what we want to do is, a lot of what we are linked up with is very high tantric teachings from Tibetan Buddhism. But we also have things like Sekhem and other lineages. We work with indigenous tribes. So we wish to be promoting unbiased knowledge to help people to understand from their vantage point, because sometimes people have a blockage to something that maybe looks very ornate or religious. And our way of being as the female, energetic, whether or not we're in a female form or not this lifetime, is to give people skillful ways to be able to acquire teachings drawn on different lineages. So it's not like we only utilize Tibetan Buddhism, because some people need to have something explained in their ghetto Dharma rhetoric, okay? And sometimes the codes and teachings from things like shamanism in a more Western form are helpful. And in Tibetan Buddhism, we would call this provisional teachings. To help people to open up to higher mind streams and higher knowledge systems, we have to sometimes frame it in their language. And this is why we really wish to attract and magnetize people from all walks of life who've really lived, because often those are the true yogis and yoginis, and people who maybe have had quite an interesting past, but knew somehow they were being put to do that, to help people in the future. So a lot of people have had a lot of addictions or hardship in earlier years, and we're here to really help people like that to find their Dharma, okay? And in that way, it's about understanding that sometimes the sacrifices in life and the suffering, these are things we cannot bypass. And it's not just an ecstatic dance disco. And there's a place for ecstatic dance, but sometimes the new age just ends up bypassing some of the more root chakra and sacral chakra experiences that form us. And in order to become a more realized person, it's really important that we get the teachings from those places and work beyond them. But these practical applications of looking at our roots and finding the gold in them is really, really important. Okay. So we're trying to move from this bypassing thing. And as such, we're trying to offer an alternative to the new age that doesn't really have lineage, that doesn't really try to crush the ego and doesn't really solve humanitarian issues. So we're really trying to promote something that's more beneficial to the liberation of the soul for each person, because if people continue to bypass, they just have to come back and do it again. Okay, so why is this important now? Well, I just spoke about Guru Rinpoche and these amazing quantum components that we have, these teachings that are now becoming more and more instilled within our frameworks of knowledge, that we can change our genetics, that we can shift timelines, things like that. And we don't have another planet. Why? And people are trashing it, and the pain body and its expression and the dissolution of the being that we see is a mirror that is incarnated in our outside world. And we look at the oceans, we look at the legacy for the children, and I don't think it takes rocket scientists to see that we need to shift something really soon. You know, we're coming to peak everything. And therefore, we need to deploy all the techniques that we have to harness action, but to also be shifting the timelines with the skillful means that we know, and to be bringing cross sections of sacred knowledge together to accelerate the process. Because it's said that the golden age is going to come in 400 years, but people like Khandro Rinpoche my teacher and the teacher of several of you in the group, is he's like with alongside many saying, no, we're going to bring in the golden age. We're going to start bringing it in from 2030. Okay. And a lot of us are like, I came on that spaceship, but that is going to require a lot of dedication in a fusion way. So a lot of us have to come and really, well, we know we came for the golden age. We didn't come for nuclear war or things like that, but we need to be very, very clever and collaborative right now. Okay. And therefore, what we have to start doing is to really look at the multidimensional, but also the 3D, and to cultivate this fleet of Shambhala warriors who do not bulk by the thought of sitting with a group of 10 autistic children, because that's going to be more and more of a thing, or to work with refugees or people who've been sex trafficked. And a lot of people are not ready for that. But it's the golden age is about everybody. And yes, there are quantum means that we can be shifting things, and that's what we do with our quantum transfiguration work and the emotion codes and things like that, is shifting it from ourselves, from our own fields, to dedicate to the collective, to dedicate to alleviating suffering of all sentient beings. But there's a sense that there are not that many people equipped to actually also sit and do it in the ground. And I actually think that along the way a lot of these sacred codings work is when you crack the code and you nail it multidimensionally, and then you harness it into the three-dimensional application. So for instance, you've done some quantum work, and then you sit with a group of 20 kids who've come in who aren't able to talk yet because they're very multidimensional and because of just the conditions of their living. And then we help them to do some art, and we work with them compassionately, and then we help them actually in 3D. That's when you sync it. You see, there's a lot of people who are so busy just in the ethers. That's cool, it's doing stuff, but until we actually anchor it, like, right, well, so where's its 3D application? And then give back to the earth and give it back to the mother. And this is why we work with indigenous codes and puja and practical offering of matter as well, is we have to do all the dimensions. And when we do those, we crack the code, because the cosmos is like, they've harnessed the whole thing. But at the moment, people are only harnessing certain dimensions. So we have to be able to really go into these places where there can be a lot of suffering, and to understand that illusion that we are being faced with, and that also it's an expression of our own inner landscape, and to become more adept and more resilient to be able to go into those settings. And this is, why we're here, to not just be stuck. A lot of people, I think, go into these repetitive scenarios like, okay, it's cacao ceremony every day or ecstatic dance ceremony every day, because on an existential level, they're still trying to cope with the hugeness of what we're being faced with. And some of us have to get ready, because we have to anchor everything in different dimensions. Okay. So these mystery schools and rejuvenation temples have to be these practical locations and platforms to be able to compassionately offer this across the board, and also to have those skillful means. Skillful means is something that's spoken a lot of in Tibetan Buddhism, to be able to work with different people and to have enough of a repertoire of information and enough organic humility to be willing to do that. Okay. So the golden age. I don't want to say too much about the golden age, but I also recommend that you read the book by Khandro Rinpoche. He published it just about a year ago on Shambhala. But so the golden age, this is not the first golden age. We come from having previous golden ages, and we know that there were technologies and realizations that were higher to this degenerate age, as it is called. And we look at things like ancient Egypt, and unfortunately, archaeology and people like the Smithsonian Institute have been disappearing and destroying artifacts for a long time. So a lot of our past is erased in the third dimension, but we have a feeling That's why so many people are fascinated that there were these great, highly developed ways of understanding things that predated this human vessel that we're all interacting with right now. And this prophecy, you see, we're in the Kali Yuga, and it's seen that the Kali Yuga is when we make it's like this wonky, crazy, distorted place that planet Earth becomes just a bit of a cesspit, which is the again, with everything being a mirror of our own inner landscape, it's all the wonky psyche, the distortion, the ego running rife, addictions, the lower chakras, all out of control. And I think it's pretty fair to say that it's obvious that we're in that right now. And we don't know how wonky it's going to get, but it heralds great hope, because when you've gone down far enough, you only get to go up, you know? And so the role of people like bodhisattvas, which is a term used a lot in Buddhism. A bodhisattva is somebody who's come here to assist the alleviation of suffering of all beings, is that it's very important for us to be compassionate. And therefore, anything that we can do to try and get us out of this cesspit earlier rather than later is a good thing. So that's sometimes when we're dedicating and going through great clearings together and purging together, taking it through our body, we're trying to accelerate the cleaning. Okay. And this is part of the way that we can start to open up to the golden age. And the golden age is seen as a time of great advancement and less suffering, and people becoming more enlightened and more compassionate and generous. And it's connected to a mind stream linked to Shambhala. And in short, Shambhala has many functions. Shambhala it's another frequency. It's an earth frequency that is a very sacred mountainous kingdom where people are highly realized, and they're kind of one life away from Buddhahood. So it's almost like a bodhisattva finishing school. And it's said that people, if they're good bodhisattvas here and now, they will the burst go to Shambhala in 3 lifetimes. But if they're really good bodhisattva now, they will go to Shambhala next lifetime. But and then once they do Shambhala finishing school, they get to go to Buddha realm. Okay. And this is one of the best hacks for people to know that they can escape samsara and not have to keep coming back to this, is to understand that kindness and generosity is really, really the key. Okay. But part of the practical component of us trying to do as much of this now as well is that the more and more of us who do it, it creates like a snowball effect that actually brings the Shambhala frequency into this dimension. And this is what the Kalachakra is about. The Kalachakra Tantra is actually from Shambhala, and it was transmitted through to monks and sages who brought its form into this reality that we can see. And those practices, some of which we are warming up to in the serpents of transformation, are encoded systems that bring the technology to free us from karma so that we can go to Shambhala or further. But the idea is that the more and more people who clean and upgrade, it actually then just makes that realm merge and upgrade this one. Okay. And that's what we're on the spaceship for. Okay. Because the more we can accelerate that coming actually to create this realm, then we're in a living realm of bodhisattvas where there's no more suffering and crazy stuff and war. And that's why it's so important for us to do stuff for cleaning of our addictions and things like that, to assist the children to come and to lessen the density, because this is ultimately what happened was in Shambhala, the Kalki kings came to the Buddha and asked him how to create that spaceship for them. They utilized the Kalachakra Tantra. They were once in a closer field to us where you could see to Shambhala in the 3D. And they were evolved enough to be able to get all their people to be able to go to do the practices, and they evolved. So we can't see them now, but it's almost like they're living in just a slightly higher dimensional version of Earth than we are. And when we look at things like the pollution, the state of affairs, we talk about splitting of timelines. This is really the splitting of the timelines that we speak of. It's like we need to jump to a higher timeline out of that denseness of trashing the waters, of trashing each other, all of these things. So it is seen that the more and more of us who are starting to do the work is speeding this up. And this is what Dharma Stars is here to advocate and to teach people about. And so COVID had a great mechanism to bring us to a bit of a wonky dark night of the soul for a lot of people, to bring people to a deeper state of introspection. And the astrology is amazing for how it's now augmenting further. And actually today is Jupiter conjunct Neptune in Pisces in Western astrology. And you may have felt a bit soupy, a bit non-focused, a bit non-able to do 3D work recently because we're in a very deep dream time. And it may be that certain relationships and stories that you've held on to, that where they're living out of old karmas, you're just realizing they don't need to have a hold on you anymore. And it's going to elevate your spiritual status in some way. So it may be that there are certain people that you've hung out with before, that you got your t-shirt and now that's okay. You don't need to be in those relationships anymore because there's a newer spiritual dimension of you to kick in. This is actually peaking today. And the last time that this conjunction took place in Pisces in Western astrology was, I think, 156 years ago. And what happened was that in the United States, the abolition of slavery started taking place, and the suffragette movement started to be birthed. And even the last Jupiter in Pisces, 12 years ago, Obamacare was launched. And it's interesting, in Canada right now, and I'm giving gratitude to Nadia Shah, who was giving a great transmission about this in the last couple of days. In Canada, they're launching a new healthcare system. Basically, it is seen that new systems that are more benevolent for people get birthed. So the fact that we're talking about new rejuvenation schools, ways of healing, new ways of creating the Dharma, living Dharma for people, and new ways of looking after our communities on this day that this age gets birth is pretty phenomenal. And I knew it was today, but I didn't know we peaked today in this. And then tomorrow in Vedic astrology, we come into Jupiter and Pisces, which is going to give a whole new spiritual perspective to everybody for the next year. And people are going to find like the stabilizers have got lifted off their bikes and that they can go faster, and they can actually bring a more spiritual component into the work. Not to mention Jupiter coming into Uttarabhadra Padra Nakshatra at the end of the month, which is, it's about stepping into your high humanitarian yogi status, not the yogi who's just there, but the yogi who is practicing true yoga, who helps to alleviate suffering, who's looking after people, who has an ashram, who cares, who's not just there for personal growth. They understand they're part of the all. And this is something that Jupiter in Neptune in Pisces can be very great for. It's really helping us to remember that we are one. And so the blurring of the distinctions between self and other are really evaporating and blurring further, because we're in this kind of dreamlike state. It's helping us to be realizing the illusion that we're in, which helps us to remember that we're all this refracted ray of the one with slightly different functions to bring to this oneness, which ultimately is the highest stage of reaching the rainbow light body, which is when everything just merges into its oneness in its final state. So it's amazing that we're presenting about this today. So yeah, as I said, the golden age is very much about us understanding that we can quantumly work to bring forth a timeline, but we also have to do the work. We have to care about our neighbors. We have to be compassionate, and we also need to know how things like natural law work, so that we're clearing karma, we're antidoting, remedying things. We know when we're breaking the law. And this is why systems like Kala Chakra, indigenous science, things like that are really important. And also Dharma Stars is very committed to the children. And so helping the children to come with a cleaner slate so that they can operate. And, you know, they have these super gifts. They're highly multidimensional. We're these bridge beings. But the golden age will be about equipping the children to come and just be these high expressions of divinity that they already are, but to help them to not be encumbered by the density of the Kali Yuga, so that they can just be an emanation of that. And as they do that, they will help us to remember that we also are an emanation of that. So yeah, so I mentioned Khandro Rinpoche, and he is a Rime master of, and Rime means unbiased. So he fuses many lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, and he's of the Jonang tradition is his primary lineage, which are the only sustaining lineage of the Kala Chakra as practices, these keys and codes of pranayama, yoga, sadhana, teachings that actually create the conditions to be able to clear a lot of that karma in one lifetime and to go to Shambhala in one lifetime. And that's why it's seen as the highest yoga tantra. And his organization is Dzogchen. Okay, so we are like in aspirational terms, you know, looking up to them and that lineage as holding some very important keys to the work that we will deliver. So all of you know, but I'm just going to run through quickly a few of the things that we've got running at the moment. And yeah, so we have Seikem initiations, and Seikem it includes Reiki, but it also includes Seishim and Seikem, which have allusions to Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion, and also to ancient Egyptian and Lemurian lineages. And it is seen as the healer's healing. So a lot of people do Reiki and then find they don't have the equipment to work with entities or how to protect or open a space. And Reiki is absolutely amazing, but Seikem takes things a bit further, and it has a real commitment. Seikem means might and authority. So it's a real understanding that we have to learn to walk the talk. It's connected to Sekhmet, who's an archetype of total honorable service to the divine. And she's like a Vajra yogini. She will be tough love and harsh, and bring in great purge if it's for the greater good and in true service. And some people will see her as connected to Kali as well. And she also has a softer aspect that's connected to Hathor. Okay, so we offer initiations in that up to master's level. And we also have the Serpents of Transformation immersions, which are real-time weaving of pranayama, chakra knowledge, DNA teachings, and Kundalini yoga to help people to actually work through and clean the samskaras, these blockages, these patterns of heaviness that sit in the field that they inherit and they bring through, and to become more free, to be higher realized multidimensional beings. And so that's been piloting for the last couple of years. And later this year, we're going to run the first batch of teacher training, having taken several people up to the 108-day immersion, which just finished recently on a very auspicious date. So that is very, very much guided by the rishis and the nagas and the energy of Kartikeya or Sanat Kumara, and these energies linked to old Palladian and Venusian mystery school knowledge combined with high yogic teachings. Then we have Quantum Transfiguration. We've taught level 1 once, and now our level 2s are about to start. Our next level 1s are running, and that will have 3 or 4 levels, but yeah, it's already very chunky. So it's helping people to really work through patterns, parts, genetic blips, collectively held patterns. And we go very deep, as those of you all know about it. Often we get called in when something comes through into the field and we realize we're supposed to do something to dedicate a clearing of that code and to just put that into the collective field. We've been working with plant medicine diets like rose, blue lotus. I have a history of working with a lot of plant master teachers from many years working in the Amazon, and working also with European master and teacher plants and Australian master and teacher plants. And so we will have later this year, we'll probably do a yarrow plant medicine diet, which helps people to really work against transference to be able to keep their field. And we will work with the Utpala flower, again, the blue lotus. We'll be working with very sacred medicine from Egypt for that one. And we have a space holding training coming up because, we've got this thing called Dharma stars, and we're going to be helping people. A lot of people don't know how to open and close a space, how to work with multidimensionality, how to stay in non-duality with things that may occur in a space, and how to be impeccable, or at least strive for impeccability. And energetic hygiene is a great problem at the moment in the new age. And it's funny, I've been like offering new energetic hygiene trainings for about 4 or 5 years, and it's just not sexy, so people don't want to do it. But now there's been enough fallout that quite a lot of good students are approaching and saying, oh, we would love to know more. So I'm deepening some training for some senior level students, which will then get expanded out to junior students. But we're expanding the space holding for senior level students for now, so that we can get more Dharma Stars affiliated practitioners who can feel confident about their practice and be affiliated with us, and to set the bar so that, and then we've got more assistants to help with younger, more junior students as the training evolves more. But there's a lot to share, and I'm very excited to do this with more senior students. And then we've got trauma-informed training. We're just at the last sections of our trauma-informed practitioner training that's been running since about, I don't know, maybe September. And then we've got a bridge course for practitioners that's starting imminently. It's a bridge ethics course because we have people who do trainings. We see people, I give an example, people who do Reiki, and they kind of want to be a practitioner, but they just did Reiki. And there's a lot of malpractice happening because people don't understand practitioner ethics. So because we see the need for it, we've created a little bridge mini course, and it will in time just merge in with things like the space holding course. But we're not trying to say this substitutes getting proper practitioner training, but we want to help practitioners to get out there. The least they can do is this course, but they should go and do some more professional training that's more in depth, but at least we're getting the basics covered. Yeah, and then there's some natural law ethics teachings that I've been brewing for a while, which when there's time will be hosted. So yeah, we also offer satsangs and topics which we can do at festivals, online, things like that. And one of my big favorites is non-dual astrology, because I really see this importance of us counteracting karma and understanding time and how to work with it to free ourselves from samsara. And so I'm working very deeply with non-dual astrology, and I just absolutely love it. I'm a total geek. And we have got a non-dual timekeeping course that I've been kind of starting with. We've started some teachings, and when there's enough students, I will teach more on that. And in the meantime, I'm just doing a lot of readings and teaching where I can on this. And I work predominantly with the Galactic Mayan calendar, the Dream Spell calendar, the Chokil, the traditional Mayan calendar, and Vedic astrology, and sometimes with allusions to Western astrology. And this is a mirror to what the Kalachakra Tantra also has within it, because it has a cross-section of Tibetan astrology, Chinese astrology, and Vedic astrology. And so Dzogchen are currently nurturing a group to reignite those teachings, which are, again, another part of the zero pointing of us to bring forth a higher timelines, because the more of us who liberate our karma and just do this computer game of life, we create the conditions for more people to rise. The more and more of us who raise this frequency, the more and more people won't come back wanting to have wars. Okay, so the more and more we do, the more and more we clear the density of the things that we find very horrific and heavy. So I'm already working with the systems I know, and I find a lot in there to be able to do that and get people already understanding that, so that when the teachings become more available for the Chinese, Tibetan, and Vedic merger, people already have an understanding of how non-dual astrology works. I also give teachings on natural law. I've trained in geomancy, and I've been working with earth keepers of some of the senior tribes, like the Mamos of the Sierra Nevada, the Huicholes, the Wirarica of Mexico, the Aborigines in Australia, the Kero in Peru, and the grandmothers in Ireland, my homeland. So I've done a lot around Indigenous science and natural law, and I've been studying that in transpersonal psychology masters as well. So yeah, basically I have a lot of practical experience for at least 10 years of very deep work, earth keeping work with native tribes and with groups all around the world. And so understanding the principles of natural law, it really helps people to have a moral compass and to understand the fractal of everything. Once we're harnessed with that, it's actually very easy to know what to do next and how things work. And where people have forgotten the principles, these governing principles of the universe. This is another of these things we see in things like the New Age, where stuff is just, people are doing things, but they're doing it from ego, and they're not understanding that there are certain reciprocal laws in the universe. And you see them written in things like Hermetic wisdom. And you'll also see them written in tribal systems like Indigenous Aborigine science, where it's all oral tradition. And then we see it written in the Dharma of Tibetan Buddhism. And so I'm working to help people to understand, yeah, but this is a law, because a lot of people don't want to hear it, because it means work. And work means antidoting karma, however, but a lot of people don't want to do the work. It's confronting for the ego. The ego doesn't want to listen, okay? But when we can tell people, well, actually, no, this is, sorry, but these really ancient tribes have been holding this for 40,000 years. And yet, and these guys say it over here, we can help people to land, because in this Kali Yuga time, that's missing for a lot of people. So they're perpetuating their suffering. So we also talk about how we can work with the energy body and consciousness and quantum consciousness and the language of consciousness. And also we're helping people to understand trauma from a multidimensional perspective, working with many and evidence-based psychotherapies and practices, but also helping people understand it from a more multidimensional lens. So recently on our trauma course, we then mapped with people, we applied indigenous ways of looking and conscious and psychic ways of looking. And suddenly we had this whole new prototype of trauma-informed work that was beyond any of the existing modalities that we get taught about. And I'm working with a Dharma brother called Dr. Adrian Heckel at the moment. We're just lining something up where we're hopefully going to be sharing a little bit more about how the Kalachakra Tantra is within its system a trauma-informed approach. And it also, there are some teachings within it that are waiting to be unwrapped, that are going to help us to understand, with the new thinkings of neuroscience, how even systems of working with the highest yoga tantra can be helping us to move beyond trauma. Okay. And so obviously these all help with us helping people to understand what is Dharma, what is karma, what is Tantra. And I don't just mean eye-gazing, kind of sexy Tantra. We mean Tantra as a living system of all things. Tantra is often misused because people are preoccupied with sex. And Tantra does include sex in it. Kalachakra Tantra is, unless a person is ordained as a monk or nun, it's a non-celibate lineage. And even those who are celibate, there are still sexual practices, but one works with one's own being to reach very high realizations that are bringing in bliss and emptiness simultaneously. And then I have a lot of background working with shamanic groups and shamanic tribes, and I guess quite a lot of my own awakening had some of the hallmarks that might be seen when we deconstruct some of the hallmarks of shamanism. But shamanism is is very much a term that is sort of sacred for people in Mongolia and Tibet. So, but we have people in all societies who go through certain rituals and rites of passage that are uncomfortable and a training for their role in society. And when I was younger, I had quite a lot of sort of that stuff. And so because shamanism is kind of popular now, we do often refer to shamanic practices and divination as part of what we talk about as well, to help people to understand from a perspective of something they're hearing about quite a lot at the moment. And I'm also a pranayama teacher. And so I'm giving more and more presentations from this year about how the sacred technology of the breath works as a key to opening up to all of this, and how it can help us to rewire fully as a multidimensional being. And I'm talking about me here, but I'm not the only person of Dharma Stars. And so as we're working at the moment, we're also nurturing the students and our collaborators to get ready to speak. I'm just a little bit older, and I'm constantly poking the others about getting ready for their topics. So behind the scenes, we're working, getting ready with some stuff. And this year, from September to October, we're going to start doing some works together from North Wales, and to just get the sisters and the tribe more confident with their offerings. So that's really, really important for me. I'm just holding a space right now, but soon. And the reason for this talk is that we want more and more of you to be sharing your offerings. Okay, so that's part of the work of Dharma Stars, is to really nurture people to get their Dharma offerings out there and to be part of this whole of the one that we are. Okay. So our activities, we have lots of activities, but just spoken about in North Wales. That's going to be great because it's actually physical, collaborative. So I'm so excited about that. It's after these years of being a hermit, which were great. I'm now officially over it. And so we're going to be doing some of these things in a real place together, which is going to be amazing. I'm very celebratory about that. And yeah, so we do these quantum transfiguration sessions, which when we get an idea of something that's coming in for the collective, we do sessions where we work together. You all take part in those. And again, this is honoring this way of these quantum masters and trying to shift the genome. We're working with systems such as the gene keys, which also see that these coming years are highly important for a new epoch of rewiring of the human condition, where we're not holding on to these shadowy Kali Yuga style vibrations anymore. And so this is why we do this. And we started working deeply at the beginning of 2020 because it's a 7-year countdown of this we work a lot with in genetics. In the serpent codes. So we're on a 7-year countdown because 2027 is very big for that new human blueprint being unveiled. We have our new project called Dharma coming very soon. So this is a whole new golden age weaving and networking project for people to find resonant bodhisattva beings to dream, love, share, collaborate with. And so you'll be hearing a lot more about that very soon. And another thing, we've just started mapping. We're taking it slowly this year, but we think we'll really kick off next year, is kids projects, helping these magical beings who are coming through, these future bodhisattvas, to be able to express and clear and be understood. I think a lot of people don't understand the gifts of these children coming through, and they need compassionate teachers, sisters, brothers, aunties, to help them to come through and share their gifts. And certainly we feel they poke us in the astral. And we had a session one day where we were doing a mapping and we could feel them lining up going, hurry up, And so this is something that we know that we are getting ready for. But again, there's a lot of safeguarding needed. And this is the problem on the realistic plane, is we need to have appropriate practitioner experience to work with children. You have to have a lot of safeguarding and things like that. There are laws around working with children. And I've come from a background of, I used to organize youth projects. And yeah, you know, I don't really want to go back to red tape central, but the best way around things is also to make sure people are really highly trained so that we can be self-regulatory. But that doesn't mean we cut the corners in what we offer. We have to be really, really impeccable. So the idea is that we're working, a lot of what we're piloting at the moment is on clunky adults so that we can get it ready for the amazing fast track kids, okay? And then, of course, we're working with hubs. You know, a lot of us know it's time to set up these rejuvenation temples. And some of you who will be listening to this presentation have some of our forthcoming, we hope, affiliate hubs that may have their own function, but also from time to time, we would love to collaborate with you and that we can map and share our offerings. And I come from a background of doing network culture work from 2005 and getting funding at times and being a funded delegate for European Union projects, for projects with the Institute of Network Cultures. And I come from, and I've done eco-village training, permaculture training. So the idea is to also make these spaceship hubs that are amazing for hosting these activities. And we just need a lot of money now. Okay, so some of our services, we already have packages that are up on our website. We work with inner child work. A lot of people need clearings. A lot of people do not look after their spiritual and energetic hygiene. We do clearings, very multifaceted clearings of many, many levels. We merge with Asta and her motion codes, quantum work, smudging, tobacco, many, many different things. We do ancestral work, working across the lineages, the quantum work, and forthcoming, we are starting very, very soon. So many people have shut down because they've got to peak toxicity from sexual imbalances, too much porn, too much Tinder, things like that. So we're going to be starting a whole new package of sexual rewiring for people that's going to be in tandem with the launch of Dharma dating. We also have the non-dual astrology readings to help people to really charter where they're going to in this new age and to map their karma. And also I'm also now doing training in compatibility astrology. And we have all these satsangs that we can offer. We also do these mergers of the motion codes and quantum transfiguration. And when Asta and I work together, it's like beyond space and time. It's huge. So we often, one of us will work with a client, and then there will be a special finale when we both come together with the client. And obviously it's also a triangle, a 3, and people go through very, very big processes when we have this collaborative process, because us and I both work very multidimensionally, but in slightly different ways. So it goes very deep. And obviously we've got these initiations and empowerments and more of those coming. Kids work, and we also have Micah doing ceremonial tattoos, so helping people to find who they really are, and then to go through the sacred ritual of this high level marking. That was how the ancients did it, these hand poked rituals. And she's also channeling Sekem and utilizing her experience as an art therapist, and so she's got a really amazing way of being with people. So we're creating a lot of these scenarios which are working from the highest ceremonial level with the highest aspiration for a person's growth. And this is something that we train deeply, our people who are aligned to us in Dharma stars, because we need people to understand that this is when miracles happen, when you converge these things on the right day, the right time, true ceremony. And we create these experiences for people to hopefully have exponential spiritual growth. Okay. Oops. So Dharma dating, and we're nearly done. And I'm not going to talk too much about Dharma dating, but you'll hear more. And we're so excited. As we've said, we are going to be cultivating this group of Shambhala warriors. And as I've said, people are shut down. There's this it's a good way of preventing people from finding the spiritual path, is keep them addicted to bad sex. And therefore, things like the serpents of transformation that we do are helping people to get beyond that carnal programming. And there are one-to-one ways we can help people. We can help people quantumly to clear the porn that's actually damaging their neural pathways and creating them in these loops of really dodgy, twisted sex, which is all fine, you know, because it will come to a point where people have absolutely, they're so full of it and they're just like, please make it stop. And this is, we've been working with some people who are just like, I am so ready to do the work. I cannot be tortured anymore. And that's like, this is one of the valid functions of the Kali Yuga, is when it gets just so much that people surrender and ask the divine to come in. And that is when grace comes through. And so we've seen amazing results when we do things like porn wipes, working with especially men who are like, you know, addicted to masturbating and stuff like that, addicted to just Tinder and scrolling. So yeah, we're ready to help people to actually come into a re-education that it's not about that, and that the whole energetics and the wiring of compatibility has either been through hardship. People, oh, I'll get married to him because he can do dishes, you know, and I'll spend 60 years with this person because they can do dishes. You know, we have a legacy of wonky energetics on the planet because a lot of people are not in their most optimum partnerships. And so this new time will be about bringing in these more resonant dharmic relationships. And so it's going to be like a dating platform. It's going to be real-time activities. There are self-inquiry procedures and compatibility mappings that we can do. And we're starting very, very soon. And we've set up a platform so that people who are really showing up, not just like because they're coming up like, oh, see what you guys are doing in that sleazy way, but actually like, what is this? My soul says yes. We have a platform to start to let people interact. I was even speaking to my ex, who was like my meaningful consort in my 20s and early 30s, the other day. And we had this mad chat about karma, dharma, and partners. And we were talking about just there's a need for singles are all like celibate singles. People are going celibate and single because it's just so dire out there, and people have shut down, they're isolated, all of this. But this is the idea, is because people know they don't want to go to that wonky pub, they don't want to go to ecstatic dance, they don't want to go on Tinder. So where do they go? And so Dharma dating is going to be these refreshing activities where people also realize that it's cool to be a good person. So these humanitarian impulses that we're trying to nurture is actually going to be what's sexy. And it's like, oh my goodness, he rescues cats from trees, or wow, she rescues refugees from the ocean. For me, that's what sexy is. And helping people to cultivate an innocence again in, wow, I'm allowed to be a nice person and actually people like me that way, is also the fundamental activation, is that it's going to help people fall in love with themselves again, because that's ultimately all we're really ever doing, is relating with the mirror. That is what we need or wish to see. So and that will help us to step into our higher dharma when we realize actually people like me when I sew doggy beds, you know, or whatever. It's just like, wow. And therefore it's giving people a passport to step into the higher, more golden age suitable activities. And that's really important, because people are stuck in their mundane 9-to-5 existence because there's nothing really telling them to go. But if you go to a group of like-minded people, like, oh my God, what you do is so amazing. It's like, I'm going to set up my doggy bed thing. I'm going to set up this thing for little bit dogs to sleep in. And it's like, wow, you know, you're helping the animals. So this is the sort of thing, it's helping people to reignite self-love, which is also reigniting their connection to their Buddha nature. And this will help the golden age to come through as well. These spaces will not, there will be courtship allowed, but it's going to be in a very beautiful way. And we're drawing on some working prototypes of systems that exist from the ancient times into now, to help people to relate first, and it will be non-binary. So people start and they interact. And there's, you know, a lot of gender confusion at the moment. And some of it's the evolution of the times, but some of it's just pure feeling an existential discommunication from the divine. And therefore coming into spaces of acceptance in a non-binary way will help people to really land with who they are. Okay. And so there will be teachings and satsangs and yogas and different things. It will all be very molded with the times and the location and the astrology and the group. So yeah, we're getting ready. We're very excited. And Dharma dating, you know, sex sells. And this came through from a very deep place of meditation and fasting, and was not expected that this was going to come. But ultimately we want to be able to sustain our students, our workers, our platforms, and this platform is likely to be pretty successful. And we're going very slowly and steadily with it, because we need for it to be in line with the highest guidance that's already coming through. But as such, we hope it will help to support our enterprises and our more volunteer-based initiatives, to support those, so that then we can create abundance for the humanitarian ventures in the mid to long term. So I already talked about the humanitarian vision, and yep, we're ready to get people training. We want to see the Shambhala warriors. If you came into this planet knowing you came to get the golden age started and you came on that spaceship, we want to talk. We want to co-create. And we, as I've said, we need to get people prepared to be able to do this humanitarian work, because it's about the whole thing. And that won't happen overnight. You know, a lot of the people that we work with are very multidimensional. So we have to help them to channel their gifts, and then to work out what settings will work best for them. You know, some people are good with the elderly, some people are good with refugees or whatever. So it's going to take time, but we want to get people trained up realistically for these things. And this is ultimately helping people to commit to these acts of kindness and generosity, which are really the key to getting entrance in Shambhala, whether it comes through or we have to go to that Pure Land. Is that a person can be knowledgeable and know everything and know all about spirituality, but if you listen to any of the top astrologers or the teachings of the sages, the key to enlightenment is compassion and generosity. Okay. And therefore the people who are just kind of on a pause button in the new age, not really priestess to anything, they're missing the vital function of crushing the ego and going into acts of selflessness. And so giving people the opportunity to do that is also giving them the opportunity to step into a higher way of being a bodhisattva. Yeah. So we are looking for the next few years to try to grow our client student base fivefold each year. So last year we had a target of 20 people and we made it. We got about 20. And this year we really hope to engage 100 proper people. We've now got our Mighty Networks platform to start to bring in the right people as they meet us. And we've got some activities. We're going to be Glastonbury Festival, at Breathe Festival. So we're starting to go outer, and we're starting to also wish to attract some bodhisattvas like yourselves who've already been with us for a while to maybe come closer to the inner circle, so that you can start to have more responsibility and we can start to cater for more people. And then we hope to then have by 2024 around 500 people, but be working with affiliate organizations, but you know, like a functioning school. And then 2,500, but definitely working with a larger body then, or different outposts. So we like to think of it going fivefold, but always with us working with more people and also working with more partners as well. So yeah, so we're really wishing for people to start showing up, and who shows up, we treat it all as sacred. Who's landing, who's here, who's ready to collaborate and start to weave that and grow that. And as I've said, this April, which is now, we're launching Dharma Dating. We're launching with some of the more therapeutic aspects of it first, so that people can start to land with the work. And then we'll start doing some mapping activities and focus groups and small events. We're going to have a few events in the UK in the autumn, like sort of August, September, October. We're going to have some activities like Dharma Dating, like half day to 2-day retreats for Dharma Dating. And we have some festivals we're going to be piloting it at as well. Our space holding training, people will start to receive the resources from that in May, but the training, this is for the senior students, begins in July. And then the Serpents of Transformation teacher training and the next intake begins on the 30th of August, I believe, something like that. And will last for almost probably about a year. And people are very welcome to come to Mexico. We love being in Mexico at the moment, and definitely some of the Dharma Stars team will be out there this time. It was interesting. I was doing some activities with people who are not really Dharma Stars a few months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago, whatever. And it was interesting because it wasn't really what we want to be doing. So it's just really interesting to see where people are at and where we need to put boundaries in place and what it is we're offering. And we've got the right co-creators who we weave with in Mexico, the right place. I'm quite well connected in the area that I work with. It's now sustainable for us to start to host people who want to go deeper and kind of come to a very sacred area of Mexico and to work more deeply with us over the winter in the global north. Win-win, hey? And yeah. And then, as I say, as people's prowess in working for inclusion with marginalized groups grows, we will deepen our connections. I've got a lot of connections with projects from all the years of working around the world, but that's all changing in a way. It's been 10 years since I've really deeply been in that work, and we will start to engage with centers who may be working with orphans or whatever, as the universe depicts and denotes, I should say, dictates. So finally, really, do you feel any resonance with any of the above? We are seeking Shambhala warriors who really show up. We don't have capacity. We're a small organization. We need people who really are like, yeah, I'm committed, and who can look at our materials and start to look at those, start to do things like courses. We've written on the website. Please, we want people to get involved, but please, you need to have a session with us, do a course, all of these things before we can discuss partnerships and things like that, because we have enough to show for ourselves that it's time for people to do their homework and then to come and help out at times. So we're really up for expressions of interest from people. It starts to open up the karmic relationship with what we can offer. And we are always here to try to help people be their highest expression of themselves. And that takes time sometimes, and sometimes, we go into processes. We work very flexibly because we're all evolving. And so sometimes a person comes in really strong, and they go away for a few months, and then we're like, oh, not really feeling that, and then suddenly it comes back into orbit in a really strong way. So we're, we see the ebb and the flow of things and trust, but we don't need time wasters either. So we need people to show up and do some stuff with us. And all of you here today in the call are all people who've been showing up, who get it, and so I'm really grateful for your presence. And yeah, we've got loads of goodies we can offer people, but we can't offer people goodies and opportunities unless we know how they work and that they actually really want to understand what we're doing. So yeah, come along to something, check out our website. On my YouTube channel, I've got quite a lot of free videos. I'll put up more. I've got lots behind the scenes as well that I give to people who are interested. I give a lot of free videos out to people that are more educational, usually for free, but only if they're actually showing up. So yeah, that's that. So thank you for listening. And this is a really good time now for some questions. I'm going to stop recording. And if you watch this video online, please get in touch with some questions. If you'd like to hear more, please join our mailing list, which you can join via our website. And thank you to Madalena for setting up the website and the platform. We're really, really grateful for that. And yeah, thank you all.